Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to some OPSE League of Legends action about to get started here on the Saints Gaming CA channel. We've got Carleton University versus St. Clair College, a matchup we haven't seen since the preseason. I'm curious as to how these teams adjusted. My name's Dan Banner, also known as Mr. Danners, and alongside me today, Shadi Hannah, back once again. Zedimental, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you, and I'm loving the name change. Really coming into your own as Mr. Danners. I think it's a good look for you, sir. And I'm happy to be here again on the casting desk with you.
Yeah, whether I liked it or not, it seems like that name was going to follow me around. So, you know what?
Perfect.
Just embrace it at this point and
Absolutely.
having a lot of fun with it. But as for the match up tonight, of course, OPSC is still regular season action. I know some of our other leagues have moved over into playoffs, but we're not quite there yet for OPSC. And then, like I was saying before, we got the chance to play Carleton during the preseason games. But since then, it's been kind of quiet. I haven't really seen them, or I haven't got the opportunity to see them play, I should say. But that being said, they've been grinding away just as much as we have. So I'm very excited to see how our teams mesh up against each other. And is there anything specific game-wise that you're looking forward to, Zeddy?
I'm looking forward to seeing how our league team does against Carleton, so that when we win the League of Legends game, we can also say we're going to win the Hearthstone game as well. I think that our next matchup, they're actually currently both Carleton and St. Clair are undefeated in OPSC Hearthstone right now. Subtle flex, not going to lie. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the league team does here tonight, and I'm hoping that we can emulate their successes against Carleton when we face off against them in a couple weeks' time.
Absolutely, and actually we don't have to wait too much longer to start getting into this game, as the pick and ban phase is just about to begin. Carlton U is going to be on the blue, St. Clair in the red. Let's see what gets taken off the board.
And it looks like coming up from Carleton University, we've got the Yone ban into the Orn ban. Now, the Yone ban obviously being a pretty targeted ban against Yule. We know he loves these assassin fighter style champions in the mid lane. He loves champions with mechanical ability where he can flex one time, make himself a montage. And Frez's Camille being taken out as well in the top lane. And from the side of St. Clair, we've got Galio, Kha'Zix, and Aurelia being banned away. Now, these are fairly targeted bans as well, as they aren't very popular in the meta currently. Right now, the meta is mostly focused on carry fighter junglers, but whereas we're seeing an assassin ban in the Kha'Zix being taken away, obviously a targeted ban against Carleton, and the quick snap pick into the Hecarim for Carleton there. Danners, we've seen this Hecarim pick before. What do you think of the pony here in our first game now of the match of the night?
I mean, just overall extremely solid. Like you're saying, we see him pretty consistently either banned or picked. One way or another, the pony is involved in the matchup, just with such a strong engage and being able to disrupt around objectives as well. Solid in team fights, just solid all around. Tanky, but yet has damage. Can't go wrong, really. Meanwhile, on the side of St. Clair, we see Olaf and Karma get picked up here. What are we thinking about this?
I like the Olaf pick a lot. Hecarim feels like a pretty unwinnable game. However, one of the only jungle matchups that really poses a threat to this Hecarim is the Olaf. Not only can he kind of match him in farm for the most part, at least in the early game, there is definitely that ability to kind of even outpace the Hecarim potentially with just your sheer farming ability. But you are one of the only champions that can actually brawl him in the jungle over the scuttle crabs without needing your mid laner or your top laner to intervene. You have a lot of generated lifesteal on your W with your axes, and you're able to kind of cleave through an otherwise unwinnable fight with that Hecarim running Conqueror 95% of the time here. With these follow-up picks into the Karma Ashe for St. Clair versus the Jhin, potentially Shen on the side of Carleton, I'm really liking this lineup from St. Clair. It's very pick heavy. It's got a lot of poke in lane. It's got a lot of sustain. This Karma provides Ashe some much needed mobility. Whereas on the side of Carleton, they're definitely looking at going for more of a bot focused comp, with this Hecarim being able to dive in very heavily for this Jhin with the Shen Stand United ultimate follow up there as well. It's going to be interesting to see what these mid lane pickups look like for either team. It's going to have to very much focus on mid lane priority. We actually see some very interesting bans being taken here with the Mordekaiser targeting Frez again, really putting Frez on a weak pick in the top lane, and the Zillion ban coming out from St. Clair likely targeting Carleton's support. Lots happening in this draft right now.
Now, am I wrong already at seeing, you have the Olaf locked in, and then they picked a Jhin. Jin is not like mobile in the slightest. Is there something I'm missing there, or is the AD carry on the side of Carleton really playing with fire with that pick?
I believe I've mentioned this before in cast, but Olaf, with the ability to cast Ragnarok and make himself immune to CC, means that the only way you can control Olaf is to kill him. And
Right.
Jin is very good at killing things, like any other AD carry, but Jin provides a ton of burst damage, and especially there is something to be said about Jin's ability to kind of self-peel with his movement speed in the late game on every critical strike, getting that big burst of movement speed. It does give him some ability to kite the Olaf a little bit. My question, though, is the Jin pick into the Ashe. I think it's a little bit of a weak lane. You match range, but anytime you try to cast your ultimate, you're a sitting duck for a Crystal Arrow and any other CC that St. Clair might be throwing their way. So I am a little concerned for Carleton's Jin pick here. That being said, there is room to provide some much-needed backup or support in this lineup. A Syndra mid would be a great pick for Carleton right now to do a ton of damage to Olaf. Actually opting here for the Leona in the support lane. Definitely an interesting pick if Olaf is the point of concern here.
And of course, Silas getting picked up as well. Being able to steal an ultimate is always a fun time, depending on who they pull for St. Clair's mid lane, as it's still not selected. I assume that Maokai is going to be Frez up in the top lane playing that one. We haven't ever seen him pick that champion up, at least that I'm aware of, so could be interesting. And okay, this is definitely a Yule champion if it does get locked in, which it looks like it does. Cassiopeia getting picked up for the mid lane.
This is a really interesting couple of picks. It's good that you mentioned this, Maokai. There was the very slight possibility that the Karma was a flex to either the mid or the top lane, although we haven't really seen too much mid or top Karma in recent seasons. That being said, this Cassiopeia pick almost 100% confirms that Yule will be playing the late game control mage in the mid lane, and Frez will be taking the big tree man up top. That being said, for Carleton, this Silas pick is a really interesting response to some of these picks from St. Clair. Usually you pick Silas as an ability to counter a specific ultimate, whereas St. Clair, you don't have necessarily any big game-breaking ultimates. For example, something like Orianna's Shockwave. That would be really influential in a team fight. It kind of just seems like it's more of a comfort pick for our mid laner here on the side of Carleton. That being said, we have not yet been introduced to the lineup of Carleton. This is the first time I'm seeing their summoner names as well, but let's say hello to the Carleton lineup. In the top lane, Tentakai. In jungle, Eminem. In the mid lane, P. In the AD carry role, Never Story. And the support, Dirtbag. Not really a nice thing to call your support, but he seems to be owning his line himself. And of course, our St. Clair lineup, as always, I'm Frez top, AM Trick in the jungle, Yule in the mid lane, Lazi on AD carry, and Miansfu in support. I'm really excited to see this first game play out.
All right, so we call him P or Patalp. I think I can remember him from the last time these two teams played, and I remember stumbling all over that name, interestingly enough. And sure enough, no surprises.
I'm going with P. It sounds pretty good. I like it. It kind of flows a little. P.
Right on. As long as we're on the same page, we'll run with it. Chat could yell at us later.
Absolutely. Going into this game, though, I am really excited to see some of these matchups in particular. This Cassiopeia for Silas looks pretty favored for the Cassiopeia. You outrange, and the Silas threat, even though he can't jump on top of you, as soon as he does, he's free fodder for a poison into some Twin Fang spam. So I don't think Yule should experience any issues in the mid lane unless M&M is there to provide that pressure. And it is likely that this Hecarim will be floating on that bottom side of the map. So there is a worry for that jungle pressure there. That being said, as mentioned earlier, Trick on the Olaf has the ability to counter a lot of these ganks. So if Trick really comes up with this jungle tracking, they get some good deep vision early, they can get a sense of what this Hecarim is trying to do early game. If Trick's there to respond, this should be no problem for St. Clair in the early game. So far, feeling pretty good about St. Clair's draft here.
I mean, I'm just quickly looking over to the side of Carleton as well. Of course, they have a ton of damage. I'm saying that questionably because I'm just trying to think to myself how much damage Silas does, but I'm sure he can pack quite the punch as well. But yeah, it's a relatively decent team here for blowing up the Olaf, like you were saying. And then I'm very interested in seeing what happens up in the top lane. Of course, Frez had Shen taken away from him. So how does this Maokai work? First time, of course, we're getting to see that. Miansfu not on a hard engage or in appealing and engage kind of support. but instead more of a poke and like a shield peel
Yeah,
with,
that's a good point.
with Karma.
You don't usually see Mansfu on these enchanter style supports. He's typically on the big beefy engage tanks or assassins that we've seen, like the Leona, like the Pantheon. I do want to mention to your point that while Carleton has the ability to do a ton of damage with their lineup, a lot of their damage is based on their ability to first lock down a champion and consistently deal damage to them over time. Their burst potential is a little weaker than what you would typically expect or see from a comp. Yeah, there's sirens in the background. It's sounds of Windsor, folks. But anyways, going into that kind of like that jungle, or rather that jungle matchup there with the Olaf being available for St. Clair, I don't expect Trick to experience a whole lot of issues in this game. As if he manages to get out of that early game with enough of a lead. There's not a whole lot of just straight up one-shot target burst available for the side of Carleton that they would like to see into this Olaf matchup. So this game is really going to come down to jungle difference.
Definitely believe it. And then looking over to Yule for a second, of course, as announced on our social medias, Yule, Player of the Month for October, the entire League of Legends squad had an absolutely insane month of October between like the Jury Esports events and how they were doing in their normal league matches here for the OPSE. It was a fantastic time all around, and Yule was one of the players, of course, who stood out and gets the Tim Hortons Player of the Month. But that being said, like Yule did fantastic, but everybody on this team did fantastic. But I'm curious to see as this game goes on, will he be the one just shredding through this Carleton squad? As like I said during the game against you Windsor, as the game goes on, like it's all up to Cassio to get as toxic as possible in the best way possible. Of course, referring to the poison itself, just consistent damage across the board. It's nearly time to hop into the matchup. So real quick before we do begin, I do want to give a big thank you to our sponsors, of course, which is, of course, St. Clair College itself, St. Clair College Alumni Association, PC Outlet, Zuckelman School of Business and IT, Tim Hortons, and the St. Clair SRC. Thank you for making this program possible.
Absolutely. And it was really exciting to see after the St. Clair versus Windsor game, AM 800 picked up the match results and actually wrote an article about it. That's something I've never seen before. Local news getting invested in collegiate esports. And it really shows that how the support of the sponsors that we have here on campus can actually really actively contribute to the growth of the collegiate esports scene. It's really cool to see things like that. I, for one, am really excited about the kind of opportunities for future media involvement in this. So yeah, big thank you and really exciting stuff.
Scared the crap out of me for a second. I think that same officer who just flew down your street just showed up by mine. Scared the crap out of me. Jump scare real quick mid-cast, but we're good.
In this round. And we are just about to get underway here for game number one. I am really looking forward to these matchups. You mentioned Yule, of course, being the player of the month, but we've seen Mansfu pop off like crazy this season. His ability to shove out lane with Lazi, of course, and then make those rotations into the enemy jungle, into the enemy mid lane, and just really be that second jungler for his team has proven to be so invaluable in previous matches. And here now on the Enchanter, I'm curious to see if he's able to provide that same value to his team. Definitely a different style of composition than what we're typically used to seeing from the St. Clair lineup. But these bans, I did want to mention about these bans. These bans were very top targeted. A lot of teams recently are really trying to put Frez off of his comfort picks and onto something he's not very comfortable on. With this Maokai pick, if Frez is able to come through and play the hard lane on the Maokai here, St. Clair should have no problems. Really looking forward to seeing how he comes up in this game number one.
I know except for a handful of occasions where it seems like if it's not a shot at Frez, but if he's going even in his lane, I feel like that's huge because he's oftentimes playing these later game tanky kind of characters that are looking to support in the end. But it's been kind of a hit or miss. It always felt like he was maybe a little bit behind during certain matches. I know during the Drury Esports Invitational, at least early on, kind of struggled, and in the grand finals, but was able to turn around in the end. And then in the last matchup during the OPSE League of Legends matches last week, he was actually starting to roll things a little bit. Really had it going in his favor. And as I'm sure you all can hear, it is just about time to go. Loading into the game. Game one right around the corner.
Yeah, as the laners kind of approach getting themselves set up in this traditional 5-point start, we see this from St. Clair nearly every game. It does a lot of work for providing good vision for your team against the enemy team. It looks like Carleton's kind of setting up a similar start here as well. Pivoting Leona to the mid lane is an interesting choice. Having that support in the mid lane means that there is the possibility for them to go for a later invade. Typically, you'll see teams position themselves similarly to what St. Clair is doing, where you have your mid laner or jungle in that mid lane spot and your support is more off to the side protecting your carries. But rather what we have on the side of Carleton is you have the support in the mid lane and this AD carry hanging back at his tier 2 tower. Really kind of a very safe approach to this level 1. Hecarim dropping that ward, resetting quickly for the sweeper's lens as we see here. Going to go for some early vision denial, likely transition into some ganks. Trick already having his equipped here, and we're going to get ready to see these junglers get their first camps leashed as we move into the laning phase.
Yeah, M&M down on the red side, and it looks like we're going to have a blue start here for Trick. Bot laner's going to both assist their junglers respectively here. And then, yeah, like you were saying, pretty quiet start overall, safe start. I was pretty surprised to see Neverstory just sitting back, like not covering anything, but I guess he is pretty vulnerable in the early phases of the game, especially level 1, so it makes sense. Probably, anytime I see a Leona, I just assume they're going to try and rush fire at level 2 and try and get the jump onto 2 extremely squishy champions here in this bot lane. Mansfo is so used to playing Pantheon or Leona, but I'm actually quite surprised. Pantheon didn't get banned in this game, but they still opted for the Enchanter Karma instead. So I wonder if this is something they've been specifically working on for either this matchup, or it's something new that they're trying to add to their repertoire, or having not so much of a hard engage bot lane.
I think this early into the season, it's good to experiment with new compositions and lineups. We see a quick little trade here coming out from Tentakai up on the top lane against Frez. Obviously that Shen having that level 2 power spike there with the ability to taunt and get that extra little bit of poke damage in there is a great way to establish yourself in lane. Frez taking a big chunk of damage there. But as you were mentioning about this bot lane with Miansfu, the Karma pickup here actually I think is a really good pick to start off the laning phase, like kind of pick earlier in the draft rather. Because it gives you so much protection against these initiation supports. So there is likely a chance that this was a targeted pick against some of Dirtbag's more aggressive support picks like the Leona. It is a good way to respond to it. Having some technical issues. I am hearing sound now. Thank you so much for that.
I was just about to ask you about that. All right.
It goes here as well, but in this bot lane, it's very just kind of slow poking back and forth. That Karma pick really denied that level 2 power spike that you were mentioning from the Leona. A lot of bot lanes like to go for that play. Not seeing it today.
Yep, the safe play all around the board. Granted, they hit level 3 faster. Neverstory going to be packing a punch whenever those the ricocheting cans. I can't remember what the actual ability itself is called, but his first initial ability, making that hit that much harder, or picking up all of his abilities. Frez and Tentakai going back and forth in the top lane, up for a visit. M&M right around the corner. Frez is probably going to have to burn his flash as the pony's going to push him away. A bit of a late attempt, tries to charge through, and he's going to go down, saving his flash. But first blood going to go over to M&M on the Hecarim.
And that's just some unfortunate jungle tracking there from St. Clair. It was pretty likely that the Hecarim was starting on the red buff. We did see the enemy bot lane leash. We saw Carleton kind of get that delayed start into the bottom lane. So we had a good sense that the Hecarim was starting bot lane. And typically around this time, around 3.5 minutes, 3 minutes, 45 seconds is usually when junglers will finish their initiative and go up top lane. Again here, a very similar kind of point here from Yule. We just saw the Hecarim leave top lane. Where do you think he's coming next, buddy?
Definitely makes sense that M&M would then show up at, or at least take a peek around that mid lane area. But thankfully there for Yule, Flash and Barrier was both enough to keep him in the game. But now he's going to have to run for the hills, get back onto Fountain, get back into lane, and hopefully gets a little bit safer as this game goes on now that he's all out of dust. And here comes M&M again. Lassie's getting absolutely popped, and it's going to be another one. M&M showing up and making his presence known here in this game.
This is just kind of unfortunate for St. Clair. Like, you saw him top lane, and then you saw him mid lane, and then you saw him bot lane. And it kind of seems like at some point, like, fool me once, right? You got to kind of expect it. when it gets to this point here. That Hecarim, especially in the early game, going for the Sheen into the boots of swiftness already here at 5 minutes. Not a great start.
Not a great start for St. Clair, but oh my goodness, is Eminem going to be laughing straight to the bank here. As, of course, gets a little bit of extra damage from movement speed as well with his initial charge, I do believe. And a Sheen on top of that, oh goodness. But because he went back, it is going to allow Trick to try and move towards a jungle. Manspo down there as well to help him out with it. I mean, Eminem's on the way there, but I don't think he's going to get there in time. Sure enough, not going to be the case. Trick going to pick up that dragon.
It is worth mentioning that the Hecarim doesn't actually complete his jungle item, so while it does look like Hecarim is miles ahead of Trick, Trick does have the jungle item completed and is sitting on quite a bit of gold as well. He has completed 40 camps and this dragon here. We see a fight breaking out in the mid lane here. There comes P2P with the ultimate steal from Cassiopeia, locking down the kill onto Trick. Carleton rotating up from the bottom lane means they are going to pick up Yule as well. That kill going to go to Neverstory, who already has the BF sword completed here at 6 minutes. Carleton kind of running away with this early game a little bit.
Definitely putting on the hurt. Sure, that shutdown went over to Yule, but he did have to sacrifice himself for that. Has a little bit of damage now, but it's nothing that cannot be tolerated. And sure, Eminem was having a fantastic start, but now it's also going to be the case here for Neverstory. And Dirtbag, he's just been an absolute unit in regards to just being an absolute stun bot and keeping everybody safe and sound. And Frez is just getting absolutely bodied up here in this top lane once again, trying to top off on some minions, trying to get some health back. Can he get enough burst damage? Not with the shield of Tentakai, and that's going to be the solo kill going over to Tentakai.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a wet noodle fight for a long time there. Obviously, Tentakai rushing into the Tiamat on Shen, a very aggressive build, big burst of damage, lots of wave clear. Typically, you'll see Shen go for a more passive defensive build, maybe building into something like the Bombi Cinder, the Sunfire. It accomplishes a similar task and allows you to push out the lane, but it's not so much reliant on your auto attacks as it is kind of just your general presence being nearby the enemy minion wave or the enemy champion in the lane. But this Tiamat shows that there's definitely a very aggressive spin to this lane, and I think it's the correct choice in this matchup as well. So really taking advantage of Frez's weakness in that lane on this early game Maokai here, netting himself a kill, quick few $300. He's going to go home, cash that in for double Ruby Crystal. Carleton.
Uh-oh, not again.
And it just doesn't stop for Carleton. They just don't take their foot off the gas. And, you know, I love seeing that from teams. You have an early game lead, you don't take your foot off the gas. You keep abusing that pressure, and you really force the enemy team to kind of make mistakes, to overextend, to put themselves in bad positions. And speaking of bad positions, here's Lazi getting chased away by the pony. Does manage to pop the blast cone in time, but here comes the Hecarim getting committed onto Lazi as well. He's going to get this kill, clean this up here, looking for the spin to win. Running out of there as well, but actually going for the turn onto Yule as Dirtbag rotates up, but Yule with the ultimate committing down onto Dirtbag with no stun available, dodging back and forth, commits the barrier, but Eminem 5-1 now here. They're diving the tier 2 tower. This is completely disrespectful. A triple kill now as well here. Trick gonna clean up that kill, net himself a large bounty as well. Might be enough to get Trick back into this game and maybe out carry through objective control, but Carleton University 9-2 in this early game.
Not only have they not let their foot off the gas, apparently they had a NOS bottle in the trunk. Because what the heck was that? Like, so much confidence coming out here from Eminem. So much damage on top of it. Dirtbag right behind him as well. In that fight, when Yule came to reinforce, he was able to draw the ult onto Dirtbag. And then like make sure that he didn't get stunned that way. Which just let Eminem keep on doing damage. He's 6-2-1. Not even 10 minutes into this game, going to have one of the fastest Trinity Forces I think I've seen in the game in this entire season if he keeps this up.
Just about like 500, 600 gold off of it. Likely going to reset for it quickly soon here. I have to keep my eye on Dirtbag now, though. That Leona rotation was so expertly timed. Definitely going to have to watch the minimap a little closely. All the support players in the chat, keep your eyes on this one because, man, this guy can move.
And just keeps extending that lead more and more. We've seen other teams time and time again. They do find themselves in a lead up against St. Clair, but then they kind of take their time. They start getting comfortable, and St. Clair just farms their way up, maybe finds a good team fight or two, and eventually, even if they're a bit of gold down, they bring it back. If Carleton keeps this up, it's not going to be the case.
It's definitely winnable for sure, but there is something to be said about the power of early game Hecarim. Like, he picked up a Darksteel, and we've seen this from junglers before against St. Clair. That BM Darksteel, likely not going to be following this up into the Magi's as we saw from the Nunu in the Winter series.
Oh, yeah.
Darksteel is a little bit of a flex buy as well for this Hecarim here, choosing not to complete the Trinity Force right away. Trick actually going for the ward clear there rather than looking for the turn on the Leona. There was the potential that Hecarim is also looking for a lane gank. Unfortunately for St. Clair, they do not have full map vision that we do, and Eminem is currently chilling in Trick's topside jungle, looking for a dive onto Yule. Yule, posturing himself down on the bottom side, seems to have a decent read of where this Hecarim is currently. He's farming safely from the side there, looking to go for this dragon, but the Rift Herald, as soon as Yule leaves lane, the Herald gets committed, and the mid tower is shortly going to fall.
They might be able to turn this onto the dragon as well, maybe not quite in time, but we'll have to see if Eminem decides to turn since P is right there. But, they are just going to end up retreating. But it was kind of weird. Trick's down on the bot side. I was expecting to see some sort of engagement, but actually this is not exactly what I expected. Lassie getting peppered by Dirtbag. Curtain Call coming out, try and finish off Lassie. No mana left either. One more shot. Secured, sniped, and now Mienzfo, he's not on a tanky character at all. Nearly getting burst out single-handedly by Eminem. And this bot lane, and just these lanes in general, just having such a hard time versus Carleton in this first game.
Yeah, Answer here getting kind of zoned off by the Hecarim. The Hecarim happy to kind of proxy farm this bot lane here. Yansfu looking like he might get out, but not quite. That last spin to win here. P2P with the ultimate steal again onto Yule, commits it for a big chunk of damage. That is able to zone the Cassiopeia off of this lane. Lazi, a little bit of a missing ping play there here, but Yule with the defensive ultimate there, protecting himself just under the tower. Eminem coming for the flank again. This man is everywhere, forcing out the flash from the Cassiopeia. Yule is going to escape with his life, but just barely. And Trick now is on the hunt in the topside jungle.
I think there is a bounty on the head of Eminem, and sure enough, because that Carleton all going to back up their jungler. Nicely done there, Tentakai. I think he had used his Stand United when Yule popped the Petrifying Gaze onto P2P. But it was just so weird. When, I'm looking back down when Trick is on that bot lane, and think to myself, okay, the Leona is point blank with them. Where's the Ash Arrow? The extra, the way that Carleton had been playing this lane, they weren't even level 6 yet. It's just been absolute dominance in this bot lane here. Neverstory, level 9, which of course a lot of that has to do with the fact that Dirtbag's been roaming. But even Dirtbag's level 7, just destroying the Sinclair bot lane.
Yeah, I mean, I think there the read was watch out for Hecarim, because this man is everywhere. And if you don't know where he is, you have to assume he's right behind you. So I understand, I guess, from that point of view, that maybe there was some fear about a Hecarim responding with a lane gank onto Trick. But Lazi with the overextension into the bot lane, getting kind of looking for the fight onto Leona and then getting punished for it really heavily. It just kind of seemed like a little bit of overconfidence there. Really kind of just overestimating how much damage he currently has. It is important to note the CS differentials here in these carry lanes. The mid lane is fairly even, however, there has been quite a bit of damage thrown onto Yule and a lot of focus coming out from the Hecarim, which is making it very awkward for Yule to farm. But in the bottom lane, 133 to 75. So not only is there a 60 CS lead, but there's a 2 kill lead as well. Eminem back in the bot lane again. There's not even time to talk about it, folks. He shows up and they're dead.
As soon as, or as fast as you can hit the delete button, there goes Mienzfo, with all three of them turning on him instantly. Sure, Lassie's going to get out of the dodge after burning the flash, but there's still damage to be done here. Yule's going to try and at least trade this, though. P2P going down. Yule and Trick are going to try and pull this off, and they're going to be able to successfully do so. Dirtbag, unfortunately, something happened here. Maybe a bit of a disconnect as we have ourselves a pause. But at the very tail end of that, we did see Yule at least get the shutdown gold from Eminem's Hecarim, and we're going to be waiting for a brief moment to figure out what happened here. The game should be back underway shortly, but I guess the final thing, other than that kill, was just the bot lane turret did go, or was about to go down.
GG jungle inting and the immediate disconnect. You love to see it, folks. It's the classic solo queue shenanigans. Likely not the case here. Of course, there are some technical difficulties when everyone's playing from home, just COVID things. That being said, the rest of that kill does look pretty good for St. Clair. We got 2 kills now onto Yule, 3 total, including the one prior. So this is a big chunk of gold going into the Snake here. This Cassiopeia presents a really large late game threat, and into the draft of Carleton is going to have a number of opportunities to deal that damage in this game. I am actually surprised that Yule didn't opt for the cleanse in this matchup, considering there is both the taunt and all of Leona's arsenal there that he has to be afraid of. So that may be Carleton's biggest answer to this Cassiopeia. That being said, it is quite a big of damage that this Snake is going to be pumping out once we kind of hit that mid to late game stage.
Is it just going to be another one of those protect Yule as much as possible? Lazzy, you're probably on quarterback duty. We need your utility more than anything else. I mean, he's going for the Blade of the Ruined King, so we'll still be able to do percentage health damage regardless. But we'll have to see. Dragon's right back around the corner. St. Clair, if there's one thing that they've been doing, doing successfully, it has been these Dragons. Picking up 2 so far, uncontested for the most part. But this time, we do see Pete LP and Dirtbag already looking around. I believe they've spotted Trick, so they know what's up.
Yeah, this engage here from the mid lane, Eminem coming in onto the side, onto Yule. Trick looking for the backup, actually sits under the Petrifying Gaze for a number of seconds before choosing to commit the Ragnarok here. It is likely that P2P goes for the dive here onto Frez. There's the cleanup kill with the W. The Jin ultimate coming in, the Curtains Call from downtown. Not going to find the kill, but Eminem's not finished yet. Here's the ultimate now, solo onto Miansfu. Going to be hard for St. Clair to contest this Dragon now with 3 members dead and Carleton, all of them escaping with their lives, even if just barely, is going to mean later soul for St. Clair, if at all here. And Ocean Drake now being picked up with an Ocean Soul present on the map. You see these added brushes all over the map now. That is the added feature of the Ocean Soul, meaning there are more opportunities for surprise ganks in this game. And with a Leona and a Fed Hecarim currently present on the enemy team, St. Clair got a lot to worry about coming up into this late game stage.
With the amount of damage that this Hecarim is putting out, it's only a matter of time before we see him in the double digits in regards to his elimination count. Been doing a successful job, and you'll just trying to be annoying. Nice little poke there. But he's got to be careful. Okay, I guess Eminem doesn't have his ulti. We know that. But unless they were counting timers, they will not know that for the time being.
Let's hope Miansfu is screaming that in chat. And here we are, clearing out some vision on the bottom side, trying to reclaim a little bit of our jungle here in the bottom lane. The gold differential now is currently 8,000 in the favor of Carleton. That is a very significant gold lead, and it's important to note that the majority of this gold is on the Hecarim. He's done a decent job of putting some of that gold onto his carries in both the mid lane and the bottom lane. Neverstory is farming like a champion right now. Currently 3-0-3 with 170 CS in 18 minutes. That's almost record CS score here at this time. Typically at high levels of play, you're averaging about 10 creeps a minute. And with those added kills, definitely happy with the amount of farm that this 80 carry is pumping out currently on the side of Carleton. Whereas St. Clair really falling behind here in some of these numbers, at least in this bottom lane. We have a rotation up the top lane, but Frez with the snap W jumping through the Hecarim charge. Nice work there, but he's not out of it yet. There's currently a 1v4 in the top lane. Now, Danners, we've seen top lanes come out of this situation before. We've seen it at the world stage. We've seen it at the professional level. Are we going to see it in collegiate? Is Frez going to pull the 1v4 of the century here? And the Curtains Call being committed with P2P stealing away the Crystal Arrow. There's no opportunities for outplays there with the perma stun being committed. 3 ultimates having to go down there onto Frez, though. That is worthy to note. Lazzy with the ultimate onto Eminem. Miansfu running away for his life here. But Lazzy is managing to do a little bit of damage here. Miansfu trying to kite, but there's just not enough damage coming out of this 80 carry. Your Ashe has a cutlass and boots. She's not doing anything right now. And unfortunately for St. Clair, that means Eminem is having his way with them. He is just running through this map, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it, except for maybe Yule here. The Stand United is coming down now onto Eminem the Shen with the teleport here. Yule looking for the snap ultimate, just barely missing it. Does manage to find the shutdown. There is the opportunity to kite now onto Tensakai. Does whiff the Q. Gonna have to wait for that cooldown now. Backing out a little bit, resetting some of his health there. The poison does stick, and he's looking for the turnaround. Flash taunt from Tensakai. Very nice work here. Are the creeps gonna get him? No, they are not. And Tensakai walking out of that one 2-0 and 5 now.
Gosh, Lassie basically just tickles. There was absolutely very little damage being done. Now he has the Blade of the Ruined King that would have definitely made a difference in that fight, but it was just basically as slow, and let's be honest, Hecarim has enough speed already that he really doesn't care. He'll just plow through it anyway. And Frez up top had that 1v4 attempt, but unfortunately, the Ash Arrow coming out of PLP actually just shut down any hopes of him being able to make some sort of outplay there. He was already like halfway dead before the fight even really started, and it was just a bad time all around. St. Clair, 9,000 gold deficit, and really the only one who can pack any punch right now is Yule, and I'm sure Carleton is going to focus them extremely hard once these team fights start going down.
You have to think that if you're St. Clair by now, at this point, you've got to start thinking about your win condition. This is a really big thing with League of Legends, and especially at the collegiate level. Teams have to learn to identify their win condition. And if your win condition is your Cassiopeia, you should not be splitting your lanes. You should be crowding around her and protecting her like the champion you are. But this is what happens when you split your lanes. Lozzie getting caught out in the bottom side. Eminem just going to run her down there. The flash coming out from Lozzie means that the ultimate is the response here. Now going on for an extended fight onto Frez. Trick coming in for the rotation here, but Dirtbag is already there. There's not much you're going to be able to do here. Yansfu looking for an extended trade here, but Frez taking a ton of damage here from this Curtain's Call. Up in the top lane, Yule is battling on Tensakai. He knows there's no flash available. He is going to find this kill, but you're getting one kill up in the top lane while the enemy team is just running the board on the other side of the map. We gotta start thinking about these lane setups here for St. Clair. Gotta start thinking about where we want our carries and how we want to set up these lanes.
Well, I mean, at least Yule got himself the revenge kill onto Tensakai this time by a little bit of maybe extra bit of motivation going forward, as we now have Dragon number 4 on the board. Eminem's already in position. PLP is right alongside as well. It's going to be a little bit rough to try again here. He's going to charge on through. I think he took the Ragnarok from him. He's going to be able to charge through if he wants to as well. Doesn't even necessarily need to use it right now. Everstory just going to finish things off. And there comes the ultimate from PLP, and it's going to keep chasing him down. Miensfo going to be the first to go down, and another root on the Trick, going to hold him up. Yule, he's too squishy. He may have the damage, but he still needs protection, and when everybody's split up and not actually grouped up for a fight, there's nothing you can do to protect Yule, and that just makes this an extremely one-sided team fight. Carleton looking for Baron.
And this is why identifying your win con is so important, because if all your damage is located on one champion, and that champion's on the top side of the map, there is no way you can even think about grouping on the bot side and trying to take that fight. Because there's no damage that your team has. Niansfu, who we're typically seeing carry these early games for St. Clair, is now 0-7 on this Karma here. Not able to impact the map the way he typically is on these roaming supports like the Leona or the Pantheon. And because of that, St. Clair, probably unfamiliar with this style of play, it's starting to show a little bit.
Absolutely. It's like an old classic protect the Kog'Maw composition. He's your glass cannon. Everybody needs to be around him ready to protect and peel. But that's just not been the case here for St. Clair. Now, they're going to be kind of stuck on the back foot for the next little bit. Carleton now tying them up on Dragons 2-2, both the Ocean ones as well, it looks like. So that's just what? That's regen for days now, right?
Absolutely. That Ocean Drake providing that passive regeneration out of combat. It is, however, worth noting that St. Clair did manage to grab those 2 dragons in the early game, meaning that we're not even going to be able to consider Dragon Soul as a reasonable objective for the next 10 minutes or so. Because of that, that means there is a way for St. Clair back into this game. If they can get themselves in order, get ready for this next objective here, get that next dragon, they can look at contesting Soul as a reasonable objective. And if you can get a Dragon Soul on a composition like St. Clair has, this Ocean Soul is going to make these team fights feel very good. That being said, you got 10 minutes to go, and there's no guarantee that Carleton's going to give you that time.
Yeah, looking to see if St. Clair actually groups up. They're going to try and get the jump onto Dirtbag, but it's not going to be the case. St. Clair has to be extremely careful. This entire game, they've just been getting picked off like one after another. Very rarely is it actually a proper team fight. If anything, their engagement tools, like the Ash Arrow, has just been stolen by PTLP. And then this is exactly what I'm talking about again. Left alone, Trick a little bit far away. You're going to run for the hills. Never story. Going to finish him off. We have 2 Ash Arrows. That's the first time I've seen that in a while. And we're going to see pretty much everybody on St. Clair get absolutely deleted. Frez running for the hills. Lazzy's extremely low. Curtain Call is going to get the easy peasy Sniperino, finishing off that top side. PLP didn't even have to leave the bot lane. We're going to see 2 turrets go down as St. Clair is ace, and game 1 looks like it's going to be done rather quickly as Carleton just absolutely dominate.
Yeah, big credit to all of the Carleton lineup, honestly. Typically, when you see these games like this, you think, wow, that Hecarim really carried, or wow, that Jhin really carried. But if you look across the board for Carleton, every single one of their players performed in this game. While you will obviously put a lot of pressure down into the Sylas in the mid game, P2P, with these really clutch and well-orchestrated ultimate steals, was able to provide a lot of value for his team with the Sylas. So I expect that going into game number 2, we are going to see some vastly different bans.
Would definitely agree with you on that one because something just seemed out of whack. I know they don't want to give Carleton comfort picks, but some of the bans seemed a little odd. Like, I mean, it depends what do you value. Like, what's meta, and then do you value someone's comfort pick? So something like a Kha'Zix, for example. Do we really need to ban that? Or is someone just so good on the champion that it has to stay banned?
The issue with the collegiate kind of scene is that because you don't have as much experience with the teams you're playing against, you haven't had years worth of scrims against them. You don't have all this ample details and information and statistics about what champions players like to play or their particular proficiency with any style of play or whatever. All you're basically going off of is their recent match histories and your stats. You know, you'll go onto op.gg, you'll search their name, and you'll say, what do they play? What are they good at? And aside from that, that's basically all you can do for your drafts. There is the other approach, as you kind of hinted towards, which is looking at more of a metagame focus, where you say, this is what's strong in the meta right now. This is what's good. What can we ban that kind of fits that style of play that counters the composition that we're looking to build, and go for a more kind of team-centric draft. However, because there are some players that are just so good on their champions, you can't leave those one tricks open. But after this game, I think St. Clair's had seen more than enough to know that Carleton will work with whatever you give them. So maybe going to see some different bans. I expect the Hecarim being taken away, definitely, going into game number 2.
Especially since it's not a pick that we've seen Trick really pick up. Like, Hecarim's been left open constantly, and it seems like he avoids it. Granted, good champion, but that being said, each champion's, like, the playstyle may not click. So if we're not going to play it, I feel like they have to get rid of it and just hope that one of those scarier personal picks don't get picked up right away. Then maybe get it in the second go round if the draft lines itself up that way. But we'll have to see. They're going to be getting ready to set up for game number 2 right now. So we're going to take a very, very quick break, about 5 minutes, and we'll get back into the action. Carleton dominant in game number 1, but we'll have to see if St. Clair can turn it around up next.